James, thanks for dropping in tonight. Look, the Nats, are they imploding? How do you think? I mean, there's been a lot of division. Barnaby's had a crack. McCormack's survived. There's still suggestions that McCormack may not lead the Nats into the next election. I mean, it's a distraction, isn't it?
Oh, it's messy, but the Nats are like a big family, and all families have squabbles. Yeah, and the Nats traditionally in Canberra have been more collegiate than the Liberals and the Labor Party, and they've just had a squabble, and everybody said, right, we've had the fight.
Let's move on.
Let's move on, and that's the way I see it. I was on the road between Townsville and Cairns on Monday, and strong, traditionally National Party territory, and that's what people out on the ground are saying.
But James, some would argue that Barnaby's sort of like the crazy uncle at the barbecue because he just doesn't seem to want to go away. I mean, is that a legitimate analogy?
Oh, look, Barnaby's Barnaby. Like, you can't stop Barnaby from being Barnaby. He's got this certain appeal. He's got this certain idiosyncratic way of expressing himself. He's probably one of the best retail politicians in Australia. The way he can string a sentence together and just bring words, it's poetry in action. And he certainly should have a role to play in the broader National Party going forward. All
right. Now, we know that coal played a crucial role in the 2019 election. We know that Bob Brown's convoy did more damage to the Labor brand than certainly anything that I think Scott Morrison did leading into that election. You certainly believe that we should be continuing the debate around coal. I want to ask you a question that relates to political strategy. Anthony Albanese is a member of the left faction of the Labor Party. He's in a catch-22, isn't he? Because he can't win an election unless he wins Queensland, and he can't win Queensland unless he backs coal. How does he handle himself in this?
Well, the Labor, they've got this duopoly of dumbness at the moment with what Albanese has said, for example, about this proposal for a possible coal-fired power station in North Queensland. He's saying, hush money there. You've got Palaszczuk saying, build it, and the Great Barrier Reef's going to die. Labor, it's in their DNA. They are opposed to coal. Coal means jobs. The 2019 election, yes, it was about coal, but it was actually about jobs. And this is what Labor are forgetting. They're forgetting the aspirational people in Queensland, because, yes, people focus on those 3 or 4 central and North Queensland seats. What about the FIFOs who live in Redcliffe? What about the FIFOs who live in Strathpine? And this is what Labor are forgetting about. They can't... Coal has become like this satanic bit of petrified carbonite to them, and they're just terrified of it. Coal is just a job for someone, and why are they opposed to that? Yeah, they're in serious trouble until they come to terms with what coal actually means to Queenslanders.
Speaking of serious trouble, I mean, from an economic, educational, tourism perspective, this coronavirus is really having an impact. And you're a senator for Queensland in particular. Places like the Gold Coast and Cairns are really doing it tough. I think Morrison's been a bit slow off the mark with this. I mean, I know that the tourism industry has written to him last week. He hasn't even acknowledged that he has received the letter. The Queensland government today came out and promised $27 million to try and mitigate. Why isn't the federal government, coming on board and trying to help out with coronavirus?
No, my understanding is we're looking into some increased mechanisms to help not just the tourism industry, but also there are other people who have been affected, seafood, in terms of how that's been impacted by that. I was, as I said, I was in Cairns on Monday, and I caught up with Michael Trout. Michael Trout used to be the member for Barron River. He runs Blazing Saddles. He's a tourist operator. Michael says what the coronavirus is like the pilot strike of the late 1980s in terms of its impact on the tourism industry there. So, look, I'm going to be a voice and be bashing on doors. Parliament resumes next week. I think the government are doing some things, but we probably could be doing some more also.
Now, I know you're a very keen student of politics, whether it's both at federal and state level. Palaszczuk v Frecklington, October 31, their numbers, both of them, are terrible. Now, we know why Palaszczuk's are terrible, because she's got Jackie Trad as lead in the saddlebags. Why isn't Frecklington cutting through?
But no one, opposition leaders, it's the worst job in the world. I wouldn't wish it upon my biggest enemy. Well, then again, I probably would. I've got a list of enemies. Yeah,
but we'll get to that in a second.
But no one really focuses on an opposition leader until election time. And what Deb's been doing, she's been going around the state, but also selecting good candidates. So whether it's Linda Cooper running for us up in Barron River, whether it's Janet Wishart running for us in Mansfield, or Kirsten Gooding running for us Kirsten Gooding-Jackson running for us in Gavin, we've got good candidates out in the field door knocking. Because remember, when you run for election, even though people say, yes, it's a presidential election, people often just vote who the person who is on the ground.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm quite optimistic about 2020, October 31, when the election will be held. I think Deb is chair of a board. She'll be taking through a room full of people.
And it's a tough ask, because when you consider the coalition in Queensland they've won one election in the last 30 years, and that was in 2012 when Newman smashed them and we had Bligh there. It is a tough ask. How do you think you go in Currumbin? Do you win Currumbin?
I think we'll win Currumbin. Once again, I think we've got a really good candidate there. I thought our previous member, Jan Stuck, I've always been a fan of Jan. I thought, Jan is a brilliant member down there. I mean, everybody knows who Jan is. But this election, what's interesting about Labor down there, very little Labor branding on the Labor candidate's material. They're trying to run a de facto sort of independent by-election. Our candidate, I was down there last night having a chat with her. She's been out door knocking.
She's impressive, they say.
Yeah, she is. She's got what I call, the X factor.
You used to work for Boris Johnson. Were you surprised at how easily he beat Corbyn?
In a way, yes, but people have always underestimated Boris throughout his entire career, because he comes across looking like shambolic, a bit of the human schmozzle in a way, and people underestimate him. He won the mayoralty of London twice. That's a huge election. He became Foreign Secretary. That's pretty big. Became leader of the Tory party. And then has won the Tories' biggest election win since 1987. That's huge. People underestimate him at their peril. And it looks like he's going to do some exciting reform over there. And that's a good thing. And making sure the Tory party looks after the North. They're talking about shifting the House of Lords up to Northern England. That is brilliant. Simple things like that.
We're running out of time. Two quick questions. Trump, does he win in November?
Yeah, he does. Because you know what? He's doing what he said he would do. And the Democrats are so blinded by the hatred of him that they can't see where Middle America is.
Malcolm Turnbull has been throwing a lot of rocks since he was deposed as Prime Minister. It's surely not a good thing for the coalition when you have an ex-Prime Minister who's engaging in that sort of activity. How do you think Malcolm Turnbull will be remembered by the Liberal Party?
I don't think we will remember him, sadly. I think the best thing any politician can say sometimes is to say nothing, and I wish Malcolm would say nothing. But there is the Malcolm that will be in the book that will come out in April.
You'll be in the book.
I don't know where he'll be.
Yeah, I'm certain you'll be in the book.
He'll be this demigod. But for the rest of us, we wish he would be loyal to the party and loyal to the members of the party and all those people who vote Liberal National. I wish he'd be loyal to them.
James McGrath, it's always a pleasure to have you on Sky News across Australia. We'll do it again.
Please, excellent. Toodaloo.